Hey, y'all, I'm so excited you're here today. We're going to be talking about something I know many of you have been thinking about, which is hosting your first paint party. Even if you feel like you're not quite ready yet, trust me, you're not alone. When I first hosted my first paint party, I was nervous too. And I had a lot of these limiting beliefs about like what I was capable of teaching, whether or not I was cut out to be a good teacher. I felt pretty confident maybe painting one or two pieces at home alone. But if you asked me to paint some flowers freehand or to do some lettering freehand, that's about where my comfort level stopped when I started doing paint parties. So I don't remember exactly. Well, let me start over. When I first when I first hosted my first paint party, I remember wondering, what if they ask me something that I don't know? What if it doesn't go perfectly? But what I found out is that people didn't come for perfection, they came for the experience. And you know what? I know how to throw a party. I'm good at that part. They come for the fun, the laughter, the creativity, the fellowship, the girl time together. And that's what made these parties special. So before you go talking yourself out of hosting that first paint party, I'm going to be busting a few myths that might be holding you back. I've got three of the most common ones that I hear all the time. So let me know if these sound familiar to you because you're not alone. Good morning, Joanne. Hello, Heather and Judy and Linda. Hey, Angel, watching on YouTube. Hello, Brenda and Connie. I'm excited to dive in. I want to know before we get started, who is doing paint parties? Yes or no in the comments. And maybe add on to that, if it's a yes, how long you've been doing parties. Like, are you new to this? Have you been doing them for years? Some of you have been. Some of you are members of our Painters Clubhouse and have been doing these for quite a while. And some of you are kind of just trying to work up the courage. So I want to know who I'm speaking to this morning. Tammy says, good morning. Caught you while I was on break at work. Wonderful. Judy says, no, I'm scared. What is holding you back, Judy? Which part of it are you scared about? Melissa's been doing them since September. Congratulations, Melissa. That's awesome. You're getting ready to go into this fall, probably your busiest season, right? And if you started in September, you probably know September, like fall is a busy paint party season. Brenda says no, but I hope to. Kelly says I'm brand new, but no parties yet. Heather says I've only done one, but I want to do more. I'm scared. I want to know, why are you guys scared? I'm guessing that it's probably one of these three things that I'm going to be talking about. And the very biggest one, the number one, is I'm not good enough at painting. So who feels like that? Tammy's only done a couple of parties, but Lisa says I've been doing them since around 2018, but only a couple a year. I'm going to be talking about people like Lisa on myth number 3. So, good morning, Charlie.
Good morning.
Did you just want to pop in and say hi?
Hi.
What would you say to somebody who's thinking about starting paint parties but feels a little scared to be a teacher at a paint party?
You don't have to be shy because there's a lot of pretty and nice ladies.
Oh, you think the ladies are always really nice?
And they'll teach you how to paint.
Yeah, but what if you're the teacher and somebody says, what color should I use?
Go with your imagination.
So kind of lean into their creativity. Yeah. Maybe say, which colors were you thinking about using them? Turn it around on them. And if they say, well, I was thinking about pink or purple, then you could look at it and say, well, I really think pink would look nice with that teal that you used or something like that.
Yeah.
Or maybe they just need help picking out a shade of pink or a shade of purple. And you could help with that also.
Yeah.
They're saying hi to Charlie in the comments.
Hi. Also, my ear still hurts.
And did you come in here to show off your pretty earrings?
Yeah.
They've got butterflies. They are very pretty.
Even though my ears hurt, I still wanted to put them on for tonight.
Okay. You got clothes picked out?
But this kind of hurts on my ear too.
Try to push it back just a little bit behind your ear so that it's on your hair, not the skin. Better?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to finish my Facebook Live. You can stay if you want to, but okay. Hannah says, I've been wanting to do a paint party, but I'm having a hard time finding the time. Well, I'm going to be addressing that today as well. Linda says, I don't feel like I'm good enough and I'm scared. And then Terry says, so scary. Brenda says, I'm afraid no one will show up. Ooh, that's a really good one. So if you're afraid that no one will show up, the main remedy to that is to take payments in advance, right? Because then you know they've got some skin in the game. So what I used to do was have either the hostess, if you have someone else being the hostess, have them collect the money, or set up a Venmo where they can just Venmo you directly the money, so that they have a little bit of skin in the game and that they're going to show up. And even if they pay you and they don't show up, you've already got their money. And then you can leave their wood blank with the hostess or have them come pick it up to paint it on their own time at home. That way they're not getting nothing for their money. But like I would make sure to have like a no cancellation policy or something like that in place, because you have taken the time to gather these supplies and cut out these wood blanks or order them. So you've already got skin in the game, right? So we want to make sure that you are compensated as well. Okay, so let's get into it. I've got 3 myths that we're going to share. Myth number 1 is I'm not good enough at painting. But you know what? You don't have to be a professional artist to host a paint party. I can guarantee you my skills when I started doing paint parties are nowhere near what they are today. My very first paint party, I taught people how to paint a baseball base, like pitcher's mound, or not a pitcher's mound, like a first base. And it had some baseball stitches going across the bottom corners, and the words said all about that base. Remember that song by Meghan Trainor? All about that bass, no treble. Remember that song? And that song was really popular at the time. So that phrase on a base, just that people loved it. Baseball people, like people who have kids who play ball, they all wanted that door hanger. And I knew that that one was really simple. We just had to paint the background, use a chip brush to do some distressing, and that could be as messy as you wanted because it was supposed to look like dirt scraped across the base. So it didn't have to look a certain way. And then I just had to be able to draw a line with some little stitches. And I'm like, oh, that's really easy. I can do that. And then the scary part, the lettering, right? All about that base. The kind of lettering that we did was like chunky, free form lettering. It didn't have to look like a certain font. It could be whimsical. And I just did it with a large filbert tip brush. And so I got really good at writing that phrase with that brush in that way. And then when I taught the paint party, I knew I could help them with the lettering, and the rest of it was easy peasy. I also want to share with you a story from Lisa Cato in the Painters Clubhouse. She shared something that I know a lot of us can relate to. She said, I felt like I wasn't really an artist. I'm more of a crafter. Who relates to that? She said, and now she's teaching. Oh, I skipped a part. She said, but I dove in anyways. She didn't wait until she felt qualified. She just started, and now she's teaching. She's having fun, connecting with others. She said she's still learning as she goes, and that's totally okay, but it's not about being perfect. It's about being willing to try. Let me just tell you, if you're afraid you're not good enough at painting, you're probably worrying about what people are going to think about you, or what they're going to think about. Like if they ask a question you don't know the answer to, but really what they are thinking about is their painting and what it's going to look like when they paint it. They're not worried about you so much as they are worried about themselves. And so they just want to know that you're there to guide them if they get stuck along the way. So if they get to a part in the project where they don't know what to do next, well, guess what? You've probably already painted that door hanger before if you're teaching it. You know what the next step is. They also want your guidance choosing a paint color for something. And if you've watched enough of my painting videos and painted along with me enough, that stuff's going to come naturally to you. The more you do this, the better you will get. And usually they just need help narrowing down their choices to 2 or 3, and then they can go from there. Heather says, my problem is just starting. Like, where do I do it? How do I make a profit if I don't cut my own wood? Cutting your own wood definitely makes this more profitable, but we do offer bulk pricing on our wood blanks in our shop. So if you see a design that you want to teach, go in there. Right below the price and the add to cart button is a chart on each one of our wood blanks, and it will tell you what the percentage discount is based on the quantity you're buying. So if you're doing a party with 30 people, you get a bigger discount because you're buying more blanks. Or the smart thing to do would be to do maybe 5 parties with the same design and different groups of people. So then you're just buying like a big quantity of the same design and getting a bigger discount and teaching that same design over and over and over. And you know what? By doing that, you're going to get better and better and better at teaching it at every party. And so you could just pick one design, and that could be the design you teach all month long. And maybe you have 3 or 4 parties that month with that one design, and then the next month you could switch to another design. Well, I don't want to say this business, because I know business is a little bit of a scary word for those of us who are just getting started. This type of side hustle, if you will, is a great way to incorporate it into your own life in a way that works for you. It doesn't have to be a certain way. It doesn't have to look exactly like the way somebody else does it. It can work in a way that kind of works around your schedule and your means. Rebecca said, I'm bad about getting the payment ahead of time. And so far, I've had 5 parties that are 5 hours long. Rebecca, one of my parties one year was, I can't remember what year it was, but it was way back. It was like 2017, probably. That party was nearly 5 hours long. We were there till almost midnight one night, and it was a large party with a lot of people. But there are several things that you can do to trim down the amount of time that your parties take. And I can go into that in a whole other live, but essentially having, hair dryers on hand at your party is going to speed up your paint drying, and that will help a ton. Once I started doing that, my parties started getting over with a little quicker. Debbie said, my main issue is location. I need guidance with how to hold the paint parties at a venue like a restaurant, a conference room, etc. How do you land a venue for the number of paint party participants? Debbie, that is a perfect question for my friend Heidi Easley from Texas Art and Soul. So I'm going to advise you to go check her out, texasartandsoul.com. And I'm pretty sure she has a magic script that you can download and send that out to these venues that you want to partner with. And so Heidi is an excellent teacher when it comes to doing things of that scale and level. But I'm talking about a little bit of a smaller scale on today's live. Like, how do we just get started with paint parties? And how do we overcome the mental block of not feeling ready to start paint parties? So I'm going to keep it a little bit more on that lower level today, but I'm going to send you off to Heidi for more help. Kim says, what type of wood would you recommend? 1/4 inch thick, some type of plywood underlayment, or MDF. The brand I used for years is Revolution Plywood from Lowe's. So see if you can find some of that. Okay, myth number 2. It has to be complicated to be worthwhile. The design has to be really fancy and elaborate in order for somebody to want to show up and paint it. In other words, that's not true. If my project isn't fancy enough, how will people ever want to like show up and want to paint with me? But you know what? Simple can actually be better, because somebody might see a picture of a project that looks really beautiful and intricate and detailed and think, that is beautiful. I love that. But you know what they're also going to think? I could never paint that. How many of you thought that same thing when you saw something I was going to teach you how to paint? Right? So usually for first-time paint party attendees, they need something simpler too, something that doesn't feel like it has a ton of steps, which is better for you as the teacher. It's not going to take you as long to paint. It's going to be easier to teach, and it's going to make the whole process a lot smoother. So pick a design that feels easy and fun for you to teach. If you feel confident explaining it, your guests are going to feel confident painting it. So don't overthink it. Another popular design back when I was starting paint parties was mason jars. You don't see them nearly as much. I feel like they kind of like burned themselves out just a little bit. They were so oversaturated in the door hanger market. But mason jars were really simple because they really only called for like 4 colors, like a teal, a gray for the lid if you wanted a lid, and then black for lettering and outlining and accents, and then white to make like a little swirl at the bottom of the jar or some little highlights. That was one of the first things that I ever taught at a paint party, and it was really simple. We painted the background teal, and then I showed them how to do the little swirl at the bottom, how to add the little highlights, and then sometimes I helped them with the like black outlines and things and the lettering. And for the lettering, we could put "Hey y'all" on it. It was so versatile. The mason jars were excellent because you could really customize those. We could put welcome. We could put hello there. You could even put like your family name and established and the year you were married. So many great ideas with a mason jar. Another great project that I started with was sunflowers. Sunflowers are super simple too because there's not a lot of colors involved. Are you catching a rhythm here? If it's a design with few steps and very few colors, it's going to be easy for you to teach and easy for your participants to learn. Heather says, how long do you think a paint party should last? Ideally, in a perfect world, 2 hours. Some parties with more detailed designs or more attendees are going to take more like 3 hours. Um, but knowing from experience, about 2 hours in, the ladies are going to start getting phone calls from the husbands who are hungry at home and don't know what's for dinner, or from the husbands who are babysitting. Husbands babysitting, isn't that a whole other topic? The husbands who are staying home with the kids are like, when did you say you were coming home? Surely you're done painting that by now. And so about 2 hours in, they start getting those phone calls and start feeling that itch to like, ooh, I got to wrap this up and get home. And so you don't want people leaving with unfinished projects. So the simpler the project, the better. There's more success that there's a more likelihood that they will get it completed in time to take it home finished and not incomplete. Lisa says, did you paint along the way like Heidi did? Or did you let them paint and you walk around and help out if needed? I did that. So I never like sat at the front of the room with a sample teaching. I walk around the room giving verbal instruction. And it was always helpful if I had a painted piece in my hand to show them as the example. I would say, I would point and I would say, do this. And then I would say, then do that. Like I would explain. I never actually like sat down and taught step by step. Which we're going to be getting into that with myth number 2, which we just started about, which like, don't choose something fancy, choose something simple. One of our members, Pamela Floyd, shared in the Painters Clubhouse how she ran her very first paint party, just like we were talking about. She gave everyone their projects and then she let them choose their own colors, and she just told them to start painting. And when they were ready, she walked around answering questions, and everybody chatted and laughed and made friends. There was no pressure. It was just fun. And you know what? Everybody had a blast. So just like Pamela, I used to say, okay, if you feel comfortable beginning, go ahead and begin. If you don't feel comfortable, don't know where to start, feel free to raise your hand and I'll come around and help you. Because back when I was teaching, people were painting, 10 and 20 different designs. If I had to do it all over again, everybody would be painting the same design, and I would be able to say, begin painting the background of your mason jar teal, or whatever color you select, and that would be a lot simpler. Okay, moving right along to myth number 3, which is I don't have time. I know that's a real thing for many of us, especially if you're a mom or a caregiver or still have like a 9 to 5, like regular job that you're working at. Some of you are watching me right now from work. Miss Lauren Martin from the Painters Clubhouse shared that this is something so relatable for her. She wants to host paint parties, but she's worried that it's going to take time away from her kids because she's also a full-time teacher. So that's a real concern for her. But here's what I wanted to say. Paint parties don't have to be every week or even every month. Lisa in the comments just a moment ago said she only does a couple of parties a year, only a couple a year. So this can work with your own schedule and your own time constraints. Maybe you only want to do parties in the fall, or maybe you only want to do 1 party a month or 1 per quarter, whatever works best for you. It's not about doing it all. It's about finding a rhythm that works with your life. Any questions about that? Lisa said that's exactly how she does her parties. Wonderful. Okay, if no questions, we will move along to myth number 3. Oh, Anne says churches usually let you use their Sunday school classrooms to hold paint parties. I've done this a lot with scrapbooking parties. Yes, I've done a lot of parties in church fellowship rooms, and those are some of my favorite groups to teach because they have a large crowd of people who usually like to come together, like a ladies fellowship group, and so it's easy. They have a location and they have a group of people, and they just always have a lot of fun, and they have the best food, by the way. They always bring like a spread, and we'll have like potluck style appetizers while we paint. It's a blast. Okay, so myth number 3. If you're sitting there thinking, I want to try this, but where do I start? We've got you covered. We've talked about this a little bit already. You're going to start with a simple design that you already know how to paint, something seasonal or fun that works great for beginners, right? We talked about that. You're also going to gather your basic supplies like paintbrushes, blanks, aprons if you want to provide them. I never did. Table covers and water cups. So Some of these things I used to have the hostess provide on her own. If somebody else was hosting the party, let's take the church fellowship room for example. Maybe there's a lady from that church who's contacted you and said, "We have a ladies Bible study group that wants to get together to paint this mason jar door hanger. Would you be willing to come to our fellowship hall and teach it?" I would say, "Yes, I will bring the wood, I'll bring the brushes, I'll bring the paint. What I need you to supply is the tables, the tablecloths, some foam paper plates, some cups to rinse brushes in, and some paper towels. That way, all those things, except for the tables, of course, are things that will be thrown away at the end of the party. They're the consumable things that get thrown away. And if somebody is contacting you, asking you to come to their location, it's much easier for them to provide it at their location because they know how many tables they're setting up. And then they know how many attendees are coming. So they know how many spaces or seats to prepare. And so that always worked best for me, having the hostess prepare the things that are normally going to get thrown away at the end of the party, like, the tablecloth and paper plates and all those things. Next up, you're going to pick your space. We talked about church fellowship rooms, community centers. I've even held a paint party in a library before. But even like your kitchen table works. I've held a paint party at a local campground out on picnic tables. The main challenge there was having clean water to rinse brushes in. And so we just got like a 5-gallon bucket from the local, or from the closest water hose and did that. And so that works too. You're going to set a date, invite a few friends, and keep it casual. This is supposed to be fun. It doesn't have to be like super structured. And don't forget to bring an example piece to show them. People love seeing the finished product, and it's going to make it easier for you to teach. Okay, questions. Heather said, "I have Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays off. Do you think kids' parties would be good for Friday during the day?" In the summer, maybe, but in the school year, probably not, since they're going to be at school. And I will be completely honest with you. I never did kids' parties for a couple of reasons. Number one, I'm a bit of a control freak, and kids like to do their own thing. Like some of them would just smear the paint all over the project. And I'm like, don't do that. Number two, you can never charge as much for a kids' party as you do for a party with adults, right? Because the mom who's paying for her child to come paint at the paint party is probably realizing this is not going to be the most noteworthy piece of art that their child has ever created. So they're probably not willing to pay a lot. So I just said in the beginning, and I'm not saying you have to do this, but this was for me. Like I said, I needed it to work around my life. For my own peace, I was like, I don't want to do kids' parties. I have kids at home. I want to go spend time with adults, and I can make more money with adults. So that's just how I did mine. But I will say, if you have Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays as availability, I would make sure not to book 3 parties in a weekend. You're going to be exhausted by the time you go back to your regular job on Monday. I would shoot for 1 to 2 parties on a weekend. Maybe you do one on Saturday night and one on Sunday afternoon. But even that might be too much. So just kind of manage your time as best you can. Lisa said, "I do one yearly party with the same group of ladies from a church, and it's usually a large, about 40 people party." That's probably enough to hold you over for quite a while. And it probably makes you enough extra money that you feel like it's a little bit of a boost of income every year that you do that. What's up?
Nothing.
You ready to go to Nana's house?
Yeah.
She's waiting for me to get off this Facebook Live because I told her I was going to take her to Nana's after this Facebook Live.
Sorry.
So she can spend the night. I know, but you're distracting me. So the live is actually taking longer each time you pop in here. Okay. Shoot.
You said I could stay.
You can if you're quiet, but if you're over there making noise, that won't work. Okay. No more questions? Thank y'all for your feedback. I really appreciate Lisa and Heather and those of you who are sharing your stories in the comments. That's really helpful for me as we go through this to kind of speak to the things that are currently affecting you right now and whether or not you're doing paint parties and how you're doing them. So I really value your feedback. But here's the truth. You're never going to feel 100% ready. If you wait for it to feel perfect, you're going to miss the joy of starting and the opportunity to learn with every party. You've got everything that you need to begin. We've talked about this. I've also got probably 5 to 7 at least blog posts over on my Southern Adornments page. go to southernadornamentsdecor.com/blog, and you can just use the search bar at the top of that blog and type in paint party. And there's multiple articles you can read about this that will walk you through preparing and setting up and all of that. So if you feel like you need more handholding after this live is over to get prepared, go check those out. I've also got some freebies for you that I'm going to share in just a moment. So if you haven't commented yet, you can comment library, and it's going to send you the link to our free library, which has 3 designs in it that you can use right now for your next paint party. And all 3 of them are fairly simple, could be easy to teach at a paint party. But just remember, if something doesn't go perfectly, it's just paint. Make sure to take baby wipes. You can fix it. You can laugh about it and try again later. I have so many stories about things that went wrong at paint parties that we had to paint over and try again. I've misspelled people's names when helping them write their names on there with paint, all kinds of things like that. So you are going to make mistakes. Things will go wrong. You will get to a paint party and realize you left all your paintbrushes at home. That happened to me. You will get to a paint party and realize, oh, I didn't bring any white paint. And you'll have to make a running trip to Walmart to buy more. That's happened to me also. So if this has been tugging at your heart, I want to challenge you to set a date. Invite a few friends, keep it small, and just go for it. My first party had 5 people, just 5. That's all. And that's all you really need to start with. So I would love to open it up for more questions. So if you have more questions, drop it in the comments. And if something in your heart is saying, I want to try this, then friend, I want you to go for it. Pick a date, invite a few friends, and just start. Okay? Doesn't have to be perfect to be powerful. And if you're wondering what to paint or how to begin, don't forget to comment library. And you can go over there and download some of our free door hanger designs to start with confidence. You can trace these onto canvases if Canvas feels more accessible to you. Like what Heather had asked earlier, what if I can't cut my own blanks? How do I keep this affordable? Canvas is a really affordable option. And no, it's not a door hanger, but it will give you a place to start. You can start painting on canvas, and once you start making a little bit more money, then you'll have a bigger budget to work with. You could buy a jigsaw and start cutting out your own pieces, or you might have more money to order blanks for your next party. Okay, questions. You Can Paint Studio says, you can do it. It's so rewarding when your guests leave with something that's hang worthy. Patty enjoyed this. Thank you, Patty. Heather said, do you have a list of items that we might need or use at a paint party? Yes, it is on that blog that I was just sending you to. Actually, let me go grab the link for that, and I will drop it in the comments. Hold, please. I've got to enter the comments. Let me type in paint party. So I'm going to drop a link in the comments. There's multiple blog posts that you can check out. One of these does have a checklist in it that you can reference that will help you out. Terry said, I don't like talking in front of people. How do you overcome that? One thing you could do to help with that, Terry, is have your, if you know the steps. Let's take the mason jar example that we've been working with. You know, step number 1 is to paint the background with a flat tip brush using the color teal. Write that out. Make yourself a step-by-step written instruction so that you feel like you don't have to shout over the class and be loud and be the center of attention and constantly be talking and feel like you're on stage. By having the steps written out, you don't have to hardly speak at all except one-on-one, which you're probably more comfortable with, right? So you can just, make one announcement at the beginning that your steps are written out on your, have them at each person's station so they can easily reference them, and say, raise your hand if you need help and I'll come around. That's all. After that, you don't really have to make any big, loud, grand gestures or announcements. You can walk around and help people little by little. Nancy is reminding us it's fun art, not fine art. Absolutely. Checklists are what you bring, and on what to bring are key. Yes. Because you will get to a party without your brushes if you don't use a checklist. And I should have done that long ago. Angie's asking, at your first party, what did you charge? I was charging just $25 a person when I started, but this was a decade ago. As prices and expenses and supplies have gone up, I wouldn't charge any less than $35 a person now. Allie says, how do you know how many different colors to bring? I would say keep it as simple as possible. Don't feel like you have to bring the entire rainbow if you're just painting a mason jar. I would say to pay attention to what the main color is. So if we're painting a mason jar, I know we're going to need a lot of Bahama blue from Deco Art to paint that background of that mason jar. If we're painting snowmen, I know I'm going to need a lot of white paint. And so I always bring a little more than I think we're actually going to need. That way you can use it at the next party. It's not going to go to waste, but you definitely not going to want to run out. Yes, I knew this was Leanne from Canada. Thank you for hopping in and saying hello, and congrats on your new paint studio that you just opened up. So exciting. Nancy said, you make it about them. They are more worried than you. Yes, they're too worried about what their own art looks like to be worried about you and how good of a job you're doing teaching. They're just worried about whether or not they're going to go home with something they're proud of. Lisa said, I have those step-by-step printed for each painter so that they can go by that or ask questions. That's a great thing to do. All right, y'all. I have enjoyed chatting with you guys about this today. I hope you feel inspired and empowered to go and start planning your very first paint party. So if you do, I would love if you would.
How did you start with 5 people? That's my question.
How did I start with 5 people?
Yeah, wait.
Yeah, that's a Walmart delivery, I think.
Okay.
So you can go help bring that in. I started with 5 people because I just knew one person that wanted to have a party. And I told her, I just need 5 people. Like I gave her like a basic, I want 5 people at this party. And she said, okay, I can have my mom, my sister, my best friend, and my aunt come. And then me. And that made 5. Easy peasy. Okay, I got to wrap up the live.
Okay, sorry.
So anyways, like I was saying, I hope you feel inspired and empowered to go out and start planning your very first paint party today. And if you do, I want you to report back to me and let me know how it goes, especially if you're a Painters Clubhouse member. Take a photo of setting up for your first party or a photo of your attendees at the end of the party holding. Photos are everything. If you want to really be successful planning and booking more parties, take tons of photos at the parties with everybody holding up their projects, looking happy and smiling at the end. That way you have photos to share for future advertisement of your parties. All right, y'all, have a great day, and I'll see you next time. Bye.